Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we are really tackling something big.
We certainly are.
The source material you shared, it covers these two massive, absolutely critical areas. The environmental pressures we're facing, like right now.
The immediate threats.
Exactly. And then also these huge historical turning points that basically built the world we live in. It's like knowledge triage, right?
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Knowledge triage. This material, it's designed to give you, the listener, a fast but surprisingly deep understanding of both.
Right.
Our job here is to pull out the absolute essentials, connect those dots so it all kind of clicks together, and give you a really clear picture of what's happening and, crucially, why it matters so much. Think of it as your express lane to getting properly informed on these global pressures and, the history behind them.
Exactly. So we'll be moving fast but going deep. We're kicking things off with the urgency of the planet's current problems. Climate change, pollution, chopping down forests, waste, all that heavy stuff. And then the framework for fixing it, sustainability.
The path forward.
Then we do a hard pivot. We're jumping into 5 really pivotal historical moments spanning, over 500 years?
That's right. From around 1440, the dawn of mass information, all the way up to 1969 when, humanity reached for the moon.
It's a huge amount to cover.
It is. But by zeroing in on the why and the lasting impact, the so what, we can pull out those specific knowledge nuggets from your sources that actually stick.
Okay, let's do it. Let's jump right in with the most immediate issue, the current environmental pressures.
All right, first up, climate change.
Yeah, we all use the term, obviously. But the source material really hits hard by linking it straight to, how we run things, the combustion economy.
Exactly. It's the sum total, isn't it? Driving our cars, running factories, heating homes, all these things that rely so heavily on burning fossil fuels.
And the core mechanism is the greenhouse effect.
Right.
But the sources dive a bit deeper than just, CO2.
They do, and that's important. While carbon dioxide is the main player long term, the sources really emphasize other gases too. Methane, for instance.
Methane. That one's potent, isn't it?
Extremely potent, especially in the short term. It leaks from natural gas pipelines. It's released by big agriculture. And this is the really scary part. It's trapped in Arctic permafrost that's starting to thaw.
That permafrost thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrifying. It's one of those feedback loops, right?
Precisely. Warming melts the ice. Melting ice releases methane. Methane traps more heat, causing more warming. It's a vicious cycle.
So it's not just this slow, steady temperature rise we often picture.
Not at all. The sources are clear. This trapped heat is throwing global weather systems out of whack.
Yeah.
We're seeing actual measurable increases in how often extreme weather hits and how intense it is.
Like the heat waves, the crazy rainfall.
Exactly. Think about how rain patterns are shifting. Some places get these long, devastating droughts, while others get slammed with intense downpours that just overwhelm everything, drains, rivers, causing massive floods.
And the sources really connected this to the global economy too, didn't they? It's not just local weather problems.
Absolutely not. Rising sea levels, for one, the material points out this will displace millions, literally millions, in coastal cities, big economic hubs.
Huge implications.
And then think about ocean temperatures changing. That messes up fishing industries, altered seasons, screw with farming, global food supplies. It hits major economic sectors hard.
And what about ecosystems? The polar bears are sort of the poster child, but it's much broader.
Much broader. The sources really zoom in on the fragility of specific habitats. Coral reefs, for example, they face a double whammy.
How so?
Well, the warmer water causes bleaching, which you hear about, but also the oceans absorb a lot of that extra CO2 from the air.
Right.
And that makes the water more acidic. Ocean acidification, it literally makes it chemically harder for corals and shellfish to build their skeletons and shells.
Wow. So it's attacking them from two sides.
It is. It's this incredibly complex chain reaction affecting life from the bottom of the ocean right up to the atmosphere.
So the key takeaway here isn't just the planet's getting warmer. It's complicated. Multiple gases, feedback loops.
And it means we don't just need to mitigate, cut emissions. We desperately need adaptation. Building better seawalls, developing drought-resistant crops, managing water differently.
Preparing for the changes that are already locked in, essentially.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, so from the atmosphere, let's talk about direct contamination. pollution.
Right. And again, we might think of obvious stuff like smokestacks or plastic bags floating in the river.
The visible stuff.
But the sources really push us to consider the invisible pollutants, too, like tiny particles in the air or microplastics in our water.
Let's talk about air pollution first. The public health link there is stark, isn't it?
It's incredibly stark. The sources are blunt. Fine particulate matter, PM 2.5, mostly from burning fossil fuels in cars and industry. It's a global killer.
Not just asthma or respiratory issues.
No, it goes way beyond that. These tiny particles get deep into your lungs, even into your bloodstream. They contribute significantly to heart disease, strokes, lung cancer, premature death. This isn't just some secondary environmental issue.
It's a primary public health emergency.
Absolutely.
And what about the stuff we're taking in through water or food? You mentioned microplastics.
Yes. Water pollution is another huge one. Think about agricultural runoff fertilizers, pesticides getting into rivers and groundwater, affecting drinking water safety.
Okay.
And then microplastics. These tiny bits shed from, well, almost everything's synthetic clothes when you wash them. Car tires wearing down.
Seriously?
Car tires.
Oh, yeah.
Major
source. And these particles are now literally everywhere. Deepest ocean trenches, Arctic ice, even found in human placentas.
That is deeply unsettling. The scale is just mind-boggling. You mentioned car exhaust earlier. Did the sources talk about how pollution differs around the world, like smog in one city versus industrial waste somewhere else? They did, yeah. That's a key point. The data shows that in places industrializing really rapidly, pollution controls often can't keep up. That leads to those acute visible smog crises you see in the news.
Right, like Beijing or Delhi sometimes.
Exactly. But then in places with stricter regulations, say Europe or North America, the focus shifts more towards cleaning up the mess left behind by older industries, contaminated soil, polluted groundwater.
Legacy pollution.
Legacy pollution, exactly, requires these massive, expensive, long-term cleanup efforts. So it's a problem with both a past and a very present dimension, depending where you look.
Okay, next up, deforestation. The sources called it unraveling the tapestry of life. That's quite an image.
It is, and it's accurate. We're talking about clearing forests on a massive scale, often replacing them with just one type of crop or vast areas for cattle grazing.
Forests are more than just trees, right? The sources emphasize their role beyond just looking nice.
Way beyond. They're critical for regulating water cycles, for starters. The sources highlighted how cutting down forests messes with regional rainfall.
How does that work?
Well, forests release water vapor through transpiration, which helps form clouds and generate rain locally. Remove the forest, and you lose that natural water recycling system. It can lead to nearby areas becoming much drier, even turning into desert over time.
So losing trees in one place can cause drought somewhere else.
It absolutely can. You're not just losing the trees themselves, you're messing with the whole regional climate system.
And then there's the biodiversity aspect. That seems obvious, but maybe the scale isn't always appreciated.
Definitely not. Tropical rainforests especially are just crammed with life. A huge percentage of all the species we know on Earth live there. Birds, monkeys, insects, fungi, microorganisms, an incredible web.
So clearing even a small area isn't just about displacing the animals you can see.
Not at all. You're wiping out entire unique ecosystems, genetic information, potentially species we haven't even discovered yet. It's like burning a library before you've read the books.
But the driving force is often economic, isn't it? That's the tension.
That's the core challenge, yes. Deforestation is overwhelmingly driven by global demand for cheap stuff. Timber, obviously, but also palm oil.
Right, palm oil's in everything.
Soybeans, often for animal feed, and beef from cattle ranching. The sources acknowledge this frame. It often feels like a direct trade-off between needing economic growth, jobs, national income.
And protecting the environment long term.
Exactly. A tough balance.
Did the sources offer ways around that trade-off? Solutions that aren't just, wishful thinking?
They did touch on that. Things like agroforestry, for instance.
What's that?
It's about integrating trees back into farming systems. So instead of just clearing everything for one crop, you grow crops among trees, or you manage forests for sustainable timber harvesting alongside other activities.
So farmers can still make a living, but without totally wrecking the ecosystem.
That's the idea. It maintains some of the benefits trees provide, like soil stability, shade, habitat, rather than just the slash and burn approach. It's a shift from pure extraction towards integration. Still challenging, but possible.
Okay, the last big environmental pressure point: waste. Just the sheer amount of stuff we throw away.
It's staggering, isn't it? Everything from old electronics, food scraps, and just endless plastic packaging. The core problem, as the sources state, is we're producing waste way faster than the planet can possibly absorb or break down.
And landfills are the main destination.
For a lot of it, yes. And the sources point out some grim realities about landfills. They're not just passive dumps, they're chemically active sites. Meaning they produce leachate, that's the liquid that filters down through the waste, picking up all sorts of nasty stuff, heavy metals, organic compounds.
Like toxic garbage juice.
Pretty much, yeah. And that leachate can seep into the surrounding soil and groundwater, contaminating water supplies. Plus, landfills produce methane, that potent greenhouse gas we talked about earlier, as organic waste decomposes without oxygen.
And then there's plastic. That stuff just lasts forever, basically.
Yeah. For human timescales, yes. Plastic is maybe the most visible part of the waste crisis because it's so persistent. The sources really trace its whole life cycle.
From oil extraction.
Right. Starts as fossil fuels, gets manufactured into products, often used just once, and then ends up sitting in a landfill for hundreds, maybe thousands of years or worse, getting into rivers and oceans.
And the sources mentioned the global waste trade. That sounds complicated.
It is, and it's a huge policy issue. For decades, richer countries basically exported tons of their plastic waste, often mixed low-quality stuff to poorer countries, mostly in Asia.
Out of sight, out of mind sort of thing.
Exactly. But the receiving countries often didn't have the infrastructure to actually recycle or safely dispose of it all, so it ended up being dumped or burned, causing terrible local pollution.
But that's changing now.
It is. China famously implemented its national sword policy a few years back, banning imports of most foreign plastic waste. That sent shockwaves through the system.
How so?
It forced the exporting countries, the US, Europe, Australia, to suddenly confront the massive amounts of waste they generate themselves. They couldn't just ship it away anymore.
Which puts pressure on improving their own recycling systems.
Precisely. It highlights the need for better domestic infrastructure and pushes towards this idea of a circular economy, which is where the conversation has to turn.
Okay, that's a perfect transition. We've laid out the problems. Let's talk solutions. Sustainability.
Right, sustainability. At its heart, it's about fairness between generations, isn't it?
Yeah, the classic definition from the sources is something like meeting our needs today.
Without messing things up for future generations so they can meet their own needs.
Exactly. It forces you to take the long view. It's about balancing things.
The sources talk about 3 pillars, often. Ecological health, social equity, and economic viability. You need all 3 working together. It's not just about the environment in isolation.
And it's definitely not about stopping progress or going back to living in caves, right?
No, absolutely not. It's about being smarter. It's about redesigning systems, shifting from that linear model.
The take, make, dispose model.
Right, taking resources, making something, using it briefly, then throwing it away.
Yeah.
Moving towards a circular model instead.
The circular economy. That concept seems key.
It's vital. The idea is to keep materials and products in use for as long as possible.
Oh.
Through designing things to last longer, to be repairable, reusable, maybe refurbished, and then only at the very end of its useful life, recycling the materials effectively.
So you minimize waste right from the design stage.
Exactly. And you drastically reduce the need to keep extracting new virgin resources from the planet.
So it really requires a fundamental shift in thinking about the whole life cycle of everything.
It does. It's about being thoughtful, responsible, asking, is this product designed to be easily fixed? Can the materials be recovered? Are we replanting trees if we harvest them? Using less plastic in the first place, that's sustainability in action. #BB, the personal connection and relevance.
And this isn't just some abstract global policy thing. The sources made it feel quite personal.
Definitely. It's not just about some vague future generations. It's about ensuring our kids or nieces and nephews can breathe clean air and see green forests. It connects directly to the people we care about.
So it's less altruism, more self-interest almost, or community interest.
You could frame it that way, yeah. Self-preservation even, because the consequences of not being sustainable are hitting us right now.
Like we talked about earlier, the extreme weather, the air quality issues.
Water shortages in more and more places. These aren't future problems. They're affecting communities today, disrupting local economies, impacting health.
So why should someone care? Because their quality of life depends on it.
Directly. The sources link it to basic well-being. Enjoying nature, sure, swimming in clean rivers, hiking in forests, but also fundamental survival needs access to fresh food, clean water, stable communities.
And you mentioned climate migration earlier. That sounds like a really direct consequence.
It is. We're already seeing people forced from their homes because their land is too dry to farm, or their coastal villages are being swallowed by the sea. That's environmental breakdown causing social upheaval.
Which can lead to conflict, competition over resources.
Exactly. Environmental instability often fuels political instability. It's all connected.
So turning off lights, saving water, it's not just about the utility bill. It's a small part of maintaining that bigger stability.
It's a necessary piece, yes. Individual actions matter because they add up and they signal a change in mindset. That personal application is the starting point for the collective shift we need.
Okay, seeing these ideas work in the real world is important. The sources gave some good concrete examples.
They did. 4 clear ones. First, the simple reusable shopping bag.
Seems small, but it's everywhere now.
Exactly. Often driven by local laws, little fees on plastic bags or outright bans. And what's interesting is how quickly people's habits changed once that little nudge, that incentive or disincentive was put in place.
Yeah, you just started remembering to bring your bags. Yeah. And it clearly reduces visible plastic waste.
Immediately. And it sparks conversations too, right? Oh, your town banned plastic bags. We should do that here. It helps good ideas spread locally.
Okay, what's the second example?
Solar power. This is huge, obviously. A cornerstone of moving away from fossil fuels.
Panels on roofs, big solar farms.
Yep. Homes, businesses, utility-scale farms generating clean electricity straight from the sun. The big win is it cuts reliance on burning coal or gas, and during operation, it makes basically zero pollution. No smoke, no smog.
But people always raise the issue of, well, the sun doesn't shine at night. Intermittency.
And that's a valid technical challenge the sources acknowledge. It means solar power isn't a magic bullet on its own.
You need more.
You absolutely need major investment in energy storage batteries, basically, and smarter electricity grids that can manage power flows from different sources, including intermittent ones like solar and wind.
So the upfront cost and where you can put panels are real factors.
They are. But the technology for batteries and grid management is improving incredibly fast. The goal is to make solar truly viable everywhere, overcoming those limitations.
Got it. Third example.
Tree planting initiatives. The scale can be incredible. The source mentioned that massive effort in India, millions of trees planted in a single day.
Wow. That shows what's possible with collective action.
It really does. Government, NGOs, volunteers working together, and the benefits are huge.
More than just sucking up CO2.
Oh, yeah. Provides habitat for wildlife, helps clean the air, sure. But large-scale planting, especially with native species, can also restore degraded land, stop soil erosion, improve water retention. It's a powerful, natural climate solution.
And the source kind of nudged us personally on this one, didn't it? Like, have you ever planted a tree?
It did. A little call to action, encouraging that personal participation.
Okay, and the final example takes us back to waste. Recycling programs.
Right. Highlighting places like San Francisco that have achieved really high rates of diverting waste away from landfills. The basic idea is simple. Recycling saves resources.
Because you don't need to mine as much new metal or cut down as many trees for paper.
Exactly. It reduces the pressure on extracting those primary materials.
But recycling isn't perfect, is it? The sources mention some crucial caveats.
Very important caveats. Success really depends on people knowing what to recycle and how. Putting the wrong things in the recycling bin contamination can ruin a whole batch of potentially valuable material.
Like greasy pizza boxes in the paper recycling.
That's a classic example. Or putting plastic bags in with hard plastics. And even if you sort it perfectly, there needs to be a market for that recycled material. Sometimes it's actually cheaper for manufacturers to just use new plastics.
So it's complex. Knowing your local rules is key.
Crucial. You need to be informed about what your specific local program accepts to make sure your effort actually counts. It's not always as simple as the chasing arrow symbol might suggest.
Right. Okay, so that wraps up the environmental pressures and the sustainability framework, a deep dive into the urgent present.
It was. And now we shift gears completely. To understand how we got here and our capacity for change, we need to look back at history. Not just dates, but the big shifts.
Okay, part 2, This is like a historical highlight reel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Giving you, the listener, a mental shortcut to understanding how the modern world came to be.
Exactly. We're focusing on 5 huge moments that fundamentally changed everything. Politics, how information spreads, what technology can do. Think of them as major forks in the road for humanity.
And you frame them with key concepts.
Yeah, just to help organize the thinking. So the printing press is the key invention. Columbus's voyage, a transformative voyage, obviously, but also kicking off colonization.
Right.
The French Revolution, a societal revolution. World War II, a devastating global conflict. And the moon landing, a spectacular achievement.
And the goal isn't just the what happened, but the so what. How do these things still shape the challenges, even the environmental ones we face today?
Precisely. Connecting the past to the present. Where should we start? Maybe with the one that unleashed information itself.
Let's do it. We're going way back. Mid-1400s, Mainz, Germany. Johannes Gutenberg.
Yeah.
This feels like the starting pistol for the modern age in many ways.
It really does. And to get why it was so revolutionary, you have to picture the world before Gutenberg.
Okay.
Knowledge was locked up. Books were incredibly rare, incredibly expensive. They had to be copied by hand, usually by monks in monasteries.
Took ages, I imagine.
Months, even years for a single book. So literacy was extremely low and information spread incredibly slowly, mostly by word of mouth or through the church. The church and the nobility basically controlled the flow of information.
So Gutenberg's invention, the movable type printing press, changed all that.
No.
How exactly did it work? It wasn't just a stamp, right?
No, it was a sophisticated system. He developed durable metal alloys for individual letters, the movable type. He created molds to cast these letters accurately and consistently. He adapted a press, like a wine press, to apply even pressure. And he perfected an oil-based ink that stuck well to metal type and transferred cleanly to paper.
Putting all those pieces together was the genius.
Exactly. It allowed for the relatively rapid mass production of identical texts.
And the impact.
Seismic. Suddenly, you could print hundreds of copies of a page in the time it took a scribe to copy one. The cost of books plummeted.
Making them accessible to more people.
Way more people. A growing merchant class, scholars, even some ordinary citizens could start to afford books. It democratized knowledge in a way that had never happened before.
The sources link this directly to 2 huge movements, the Renaissance and the Reformation.
Absolutely crucial links. Think about the Reformation. Martin Luther was one of the first to really grasp the power of the press.
For spreading his ideas.
Exactly. His 95 theses criticizing church practices were printed and distributed across Germany and Europe incredibly quickly, far faster than the church could react or suppress them.
Bypassing the old gatekeepers.
Completely. It allowed people to read religious texts, like the Bible, for themselves, often translated into their own languages for the first time, instead of relying solely on the clergy's interpretation. That fundamentally challenged the church's authority.
And it fueled the Renaissance, too, the rebirth of arts and science.
Yes, by making classical texts from Greece and Rome widely available again, and by allowing new scientific ideas and discoveries to circulate rapidly among scholars across Europe, it created an intellectual ferment.
The sources also mention standardizing language. How did that work?
Well, as printers produced books in local dialects, German, French, English rather than just Latin, they started to fix spellings and grammar. Certain dialects became dominant through print. This helped forge distinct national languages.
Which in turn helped create a sense of shared national identity.
Precisely. It laid the groundwork for the rise of the modern nation-state. You could say the printing press was the engine that powered pretty much every intellectual, religious, and political shift that followed. It was the internet of its time, truly.
Okay, so information starts spreading like wildfire. Then, just a few decades later, 1492, Columbus sails the ocean blue. This changes the map of the world, literally.
Literally. And again, context is key. European powers, especially Spain and Portugal, were obsessed with finding a sea route to Asia.
Why Asia?
Spices, mainly. Pepper, cloves, cinnamon. They were incredibly valuable in Europe, like gold. But the land routes were long, dangerous, and controlled by rivals. A sea route promised immense wealth.
So Columbus, an Italian sailing for Spain, thought he could get to the East Indies by sailing west.
He did, based on miscalculations of the Earth's size, actually. He massively underestimated the distance, so when he hit land in the Caribbean, he genuinely thought he'd reached islands off the coast of Asia.
Hence calling the inhabitants Indians.
Exactly. For Europeans, this monumental discovery. It opened up vast new lands, new resources. It kicked off the age of exploration, and crucially, the age of colonization.
And that word, colonization, is key. The sources were really clear. This wasn't an empty landmass.
Absolutely not. This is the critical counter-narrative. Millions of people with complex societies, cultures, agricultural systems were already living in the Americas. For them, 1492 wasn't a discovery, it was an invasion.
An invasion with immediate, devastating consequences.
Devastating is almost too mild a word. The biggest immediate impact was disease.
Things the Europeans brought with them.
Yes, smallpox, measles, influenza. Diseases that were common in Europe, but to which the indigenous peoples of the Americas had absolutely no immunity.
Because they had been isolated for millennia.
Exactly. The sources talk about horrific mortality rates in some areas, 80, 90%, or even more of the population wiped out within decades. Entire civilizations collapsed simply from disease, even before widespread conflict or displacement.
That's almost unimaginable. And beyond disease.
There was outright violence, enslavement, the forced removal of people from their lands to make way for European settlements and resource extraction. Gold, silver, later sugar plantations.
Which leads to the Columbian Exchange you mentioned, that massive transfer.
Right. It wasn't just people and diseases moving, it was plants and animals too, in both directions.
Like potatoes and tomatoes going to Europe.
And corn, yeah. Those American crops fundamentally changed European agriculture and diets, fueled population growth there. But going the other way.
What came to the Americas?
Wheat, sugarcane, coffee, and crucially, livestock. Horses, cattle, pigs, sheep. These animals transformed landscapes and indigenous ways of life, not always for the better. Horses, for instance, revolutionized life for Plains Indians, but pigs running wild destroyed native crops.
And sugar. That had particularly dark consequences, didn't it?
It did. The European demand for sugar became insatiable. Sugarcane cultivation is incredibly labor-intensive and grew best in tropical climates like the Caribbean and Brazil.
Where the native populations had been decimated by disease.
Precisely. This created a massive demand for labor, which European powers filled by initiating and dramatically expanding the transatlantic slave trade, forcibly bringing millions of Africans to the Americas under brutal conditions to work on sugar, tobacco, and cotton plantations.
So Columbus's voyage didn't just redraw the map. It laid the foundations for centuries of exploitation, racial hierarchies, and a global economic system built on extracting resources from colonized lands.
That's the inescapable legacy, yes. A pivotal moment with incredibly complex and often tragic long-term consequences.
Okay, fast forward about 300 years. We move from conquering new lands to overthrowing old regimes.
Yeah.
Late 18th century France.
Yeah.
The French Revolution.
Another massive turning point. This wasn't just a change of king. It was an attempt to completely tear down the old social and political order and rebuild it based on, well, ideas.
What was the old order like? Why did people want to tear it down?
French society was rigidly divided into 3 estates. The first estate was the clergy, the second was the nobility.
The privileged few.
Exactly. They owned most of the land, held all the important positions, paid hardly any taxes.
And the third estate?
That was everyone else. About 97% of the population. Peasants, artisans, merchants, lawyers, the working people, and the rising middle class. They paid almost all the taxes, had few rights, and faced widespread poverty and often hunger.
And the king, Louis XVI, was ruling with absolute power.
Absolute divine right monarchy. He and the court at Versailles were seen as incredibly extravagant and totally out of touch with the suffering of ordinary people. The country was also deeply in debt, partly from funding the American Revolution, funnily enough.
So the system was fundamentally unfair and financially broken, and the Enlightenment provided the fuel.
Absolutely. Ideas from thinkers like Rousseau about popular sovereignty, the idea that government should reflect the will of the people.
Right.
And Montesquieu arguing for separating powers, not having all power in the hands of one king. These ideas were circulating, especially among the educated members of the Third Estate. They provided the justification for revolution.
So the goal was liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, brotherhood. Overthrow the monarchy, establish a republic based on rights.
That was the ideal, yes. Storming the Bastille in 1789 became the symbolic start. They issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Very inspiring stuff.
But it didn't quite go smoothly, did it?
Yeah.
The sources talk about the Reign of Terror.
No, it descended into incredible violence and instability. As different factions fought for control, paranoia took over. Anyone suspected of being an enemy of the revolution. Aristocrats, priests, Even moderate revolutionaries could be denounced and executed.
Mostly by the guillotine.
Yes, thousands were guillotined, including King Louis VI and Marie Antoinette. It was a period of intense fear and bloodshed run by figures like Robespierre and the Committee of Public Safety.
So how do we square that? These amazing ideals of liberty and rights on one hand, and this horrific violence on the other. What did the sources suggest?
It's the central paradox of the revolution. The sources tend to view it historically, acknowledging the brutality and chaos as part of the process, however tragic. They argue that despite the terror, the ideas unleashed by the revolution were profoundly important and enduring.
The legacy was bigger than the event itself.
In many ways, yes. The French Revolution might have ended with Napoleon taking power and becoming emperor, seemingly a failure, but it permanently destroyed the idea of absolute monarchy by divine right in France.
And beyond France.
Its slogan and its ideals, liberty, equality, popular sovereignty, human rights, echoed across the world. It inspired revolutions and independence movements in Latin America, influenced democratic reforms across Europe in the 19th century.
It really set the terms for modern political debate, didn't it?
Yeah.
The language of rights, democracy, the nation.
Absolutely. It demonstrated that even the most entrenched systems could be challenged and overthrown by popular will. A messy, bloody, but ultimately transformative event. Okay, now we jump into the 20th century, and arguably the most destructive event in human history, World War II.
1939 to 1945, kicked off by Nazi Germany invading Poland.
Right. Led by Adolf Hitler, Germany's invasion of Poland in September 1939 triggered alliances and quickly drew Britain, France, and eventually many other nations into war.
And the scale was just unprecedented.
Truly global. You had the Axis powers, primarily Germany, Italy, and Japan, fighting the Allied powers, which came to include Great Britain, the Soviet Union, the United States, China, and many others.
Fighting across Europe, Asia, Africa, the Pacific.
Battles on land, at sea, in the air. Industrialized warfare taken to a terrifying new level.
Yeah.
The sources emphasize the sheer human cost estimates range from 70 to 85 million dead.
Millions of civilians, not just soldiers.
A huge proportion were civilians. Deliberate targeting of cities through bombing, and of course the Holocaust, the systematic state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others by the Nazis. Unspeakable atrocities.
The sources also mention the technological aspect, that the war pushed innovation.
Massively. The demands of total war accelerated development in so many fields. Radar technology, jet engines for aircraft, rockets.
Code breaking. Early computing.
Absolutely. Alan Turing's work at Bletchley Park breaking the German Enigma code was crucial and relied on early electromechanical computing devices. Penicillin production was scaled up dramatically, and of course the Manhattan Project developed the atomic bomb.
Which brings us to the end of the war. The Allies won, but
the war in the Pacific ended only after the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan in August 1945.
the sources called it a terrible moment.
Understandably. It caused immense destruction and loss of life instantly, and ushered in the nuclear age, fundamentally changing warfare and international relations forever. It remains hugely controversial.
So what's the main lesson the sources draw from this catastrophe? Beyond just the horror.
I think the key takeaway emphasized is the absolute necessity of international cooperation to prevent such devastation from ever happening again.
Leading to things like the United Nations.
Exactly. The UN was founded in 1945, explicitly aiming to maintain international peace and security, promote cooperation, and uphold human rights. Flawed as it might be, it was a direct response to the failure of the world to prevent WWII.
And things like NATO. Security alliances.
Yes, the post-war era saw the formation of alliances designed to provide collective security, though this quickly led into the Cold War standoff between the US-led West and the Soviet-led East.
So WWII didn't just defeat fascism, it completely reshaped the global order, accelerated the end of European colonialism, and set the stage for the next half-century of geopolitical tension, all under the shadow of nuclear weapons.
A profound and deeply sobering turning point.
Okay, from the depths of global conflict to reaching for the stars. Our final turning point. The moon landing in 1969.
A truly remarkable achievement. NASA's Apollo 11 mission.
And this wasn't happening in a vacuum, right? The sources tied it directly to the Cold War.
Absolutely. You can't understand the drive to get to the moon without understanding the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union.
A competition for technological and ideological supremacy.
Exactly. The Soviets scored early victories launching Sputnik, the first satellite, in 1957, then putting the first man, Yuri Gagarin, in orbit in 1961. That shocked the U.S.
spurring Kennedy's famous speech about landing a man on the moon by the end of the decade.
Precisely. It became a national goal, pouring immense resources into NASA and the Apollo program. It was about demonstrating American ingenuity and capability.
They did it. July 20th, 1969.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed the lunar module Eagle in the Sea of Tranquility. Michael Collins stayed orbiting above in the command module.
And Armstrong's famous words.
That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Perfectly captured the moment, didn't it? This thing that had been pure science fiction for centuries was suddenly real.
It must have been an incredible moment globally.
Billions watched it on television. It was this unifying moment of human achievement transcending the Cold War rivalries, at least briefly. A huge feat of engineering, computing, material science, and sheer human courage.
The sources mention technological spin-offs too, things we use today.
Oh, lots. The need to miniaturize computers for the spacecraft spurred the development of integrated circuits. New materials developed for heat shields and spacesuits found applications on Earth. Cordless power tools, freeze-dried food, even improved medical imaging technologies have links back to the Apollo program.
But there was a deeper, maybe more philosophical impact the sources highlighted. Seeing the Earth from space.
Yes, this is maybe the most profound, long-lasting legacy beyond the technical feat. The photos taken by the Apollo astronauts.
Like Earthrise, taken from lunar orbit on Apollo 8.
And the blue marble photo from Apollo 17. These were the first times humanity saw our entire planet as a single, beautiful, finite sphere floating in the blackness of space.
No borders visible.
No borders, just this fragile-looking oasis of life. Many people credit those images with giving a huge boost to the environmental movement that was just starting to emerge in the early 1970s.
Because it made the Earth look vulnerable, interconnected.
Exactly. It drove home the idea that we all share this one planet and its resources are limited. It fostered a sense of global consciousness, linking this pinnacle of technological achievement right back to the environmental concerns we started with. A powerful, full-circle moment. #10. Tools for understanding history. Connecting the dots.
So we've hit 5 massive turning points across 5 centuries. How do we make sense of all this? The sources offered some tools for actually understanding history, not just memorizing it.
Yeah, a simple framework, really. First, get the basics down. When did it happen? Where did it happen? That sets the scene.
Step 1, context.
Step 2, add the details. Who was involved? What exactly happened? That's the narrative part.
Okay, when, where, who, what.
But the crucial third step, the deep dive step, is the why. Why did it matter then? And, critically, why does it still matter now? What are the lasting consequences?
Tracing that impact forward, like seeing how the printing press enabled the Reformation, which influenced the Enlightenment, which fueled the French Revolution.
Exactly. Seeing those connections, those chains of cause and effect. History isn't just one event after another, it's a flow.
And the sources mentioned using connecting words to show that flow.
Simple things, yeah. Using words like then, because, and so, therefore, as a result, they help structure the story and make those causal links explicit when you're talking or thinking about it. Keeps it organized.
Avoids just listing facts.
Precisely. And the final point was about engagement. Don't just passively accept the story. Ask questions.
Like we did with the French Revolution. How did the ideal square with the violence?
Exactly. Explore different perspectives. Question the standard narrative. Why did things happen this way and not another? That act of questioning is how you really start to understand history deeply.
And using the right tense. Past tense for the event, present tense for the legacy.
That's a good rule of thumb, yeah. Gutenberg invented the press, past. But the press influences how we share information today, present legacy. It helps distinguish the historical action from its ongoing relevance. #outro.
Wow. Okay, we have covered an incredible amount of ground today, seriously. From the absolute urgency of climate change, pollution, waste, and the shift towards sustainability.
All the way back through 5 centuries of pivotal moments that literally forged the modern world. The printing press, colonization, revolution, global war, reaching the moon.
It's a lot to take in, but the connections are definitely there, aren't they?
They really are. What the sources show, I think, is that everything is interconnected. The economic forces driving deforestation today have roots in the systems set up centuries ago. The technology that lets us tackle climate change builds on innovations driven by past conflicts and explorations.
And knowing that history, understanding those roots, seems essential for figuring out how to act now.
It's the foundation. Knowledge really is the basis for effective action, whether we're looking at environmental policy or navigating today's global politics.
So, as you, our listener, reflect on all this, the environmental pressures, the historical shifts, here's a final thought to chew on, something to connect the two parts of our dive today. Out of all those historical turning points, we discussed Gutenberg's press, Columbus's voyage, and the colonization that followed, the French Revolution, World War II, or the moon landing. Which single one do you think had the most significant but maybe overlooked impact on the specific environmental challenges we talked about in part one?
That's a great question. Linking the history directly back to the environmental crisis.
Yeah. Was it the printing press, enabling the scientific revolution that eventually led to industrialization? Was it Columbus kicking off global resource extraction on an unprecedented scale? Was it WWII accelerating industrial production and consumption? Or maybe even the moon landing, giving us that blue marble perspective. Which historical gear shift ultimately set us most firmly on our current environmental path? What connection stands out most to you?
Lots to think about there, how the past echoes in our present challenges. We really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, richer picture of both the urgency of now and the deep historical currents that brought us here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it sparked some thoughts. Until next time.